Marco Silva versus Eduardo Cunha. It's going to be an amazing finals here. I can't wait to see how these two players match up against each other.
Yeah, and the dynamic of this matchup is also pretty interesting. Once again, Marco running these kind of like tailwind strategy that has been quite popular, using Whimsicott to set up tailwind, use fake tiers, and you just get all these special defense drops and everything, whereas Eduardo's actually not running that fake tiers. And we're going to take a quick look at Marco's player profile.
Here is Marco. As you can see, he's already had a pretty good 2020 season, scoring a top 16 finish at the Latin American International Championships earlier this cycle. Of course, that was back on our previous format. Now here in the Sword and Shield format, a finals appearance means that he is here to play for the rest of the season and challenge for that Worlds invite in London.
Of course, his team, kind of a mid-tier speed team where you have Pokemon that are not exactly the fastest, but supported by Whimsicott's Tailwind, really will just be able to outspeed everything. He's going up against none other than Eduardo Cunha, the defending champion of this tournament. He got top 4 at his very first World Championship back in 2016, got top 16 at this most recent World Championships. I think has been a standout player in this format as well. He actually top cut that very first regionals over in Bochum over in January, and here he is with what I think is a really interesting team as well. You've got Durant and you've got Gourgeist, two Pokemon that definitely aren't used by a lot of trainers.
Yeah, an established and decorated player. Of course, the defending Oceania international champion. Really interesting matchup here, like you mentioned, what we saw in that seniors finals, having the Dracovish against the Gastrodon. Eduardo bringing Gastrodon, we saw how important it was for him in previous matches. Staring down the Dracovish, you have to imagine it's even more important to protect the Sea Slug.
Yeah, and you know, both players have pretty different teams if you look at it across the board. And I think one thing that I am especially curious about is who these trainers will opt to Dynamax, because as we've seen throughout the course of the tournament, they're very flexible who they want to Dynamax. But Durant is a Pokemon I definitely have my eye out on because it has a pretty good offensive matchup against a lot of Pokemon like Whimsicott, like Duraludon. You protect it with Gastrodon next to it, and Dracovish can't really do very much next to it as well. So for Eduardo's end, I kind of expect to see Durant and Gastrodon in combination, definitely as a strategy to sweep through, at least in one of the games. And for Marco's end, you know, you do have the option to set up Tailwind with Whimsicott. There isn't anything that can really deny that. For example, no fake out from Eduardo's end. So you can just kind of sweep through, get the Tailwind off. Something like Duraludon can Dynamax, of course, do a lot of damage. Max Steel Spike gets really good coverage, but the thing about Dynamaxing Duraludon in this matchup is you have to worry about Dynamax Gastrodon, which is certainly a possibility. And even Durant, Max Quake, especially supported by, you know, just a little bit of chip damage, can't get that knockout into Duraludon.
Yeah, and if you do go for the Tailwind option, you have to be careful about that Gourgeist on Eduardo's side. Has the Trick Room option as well, and a Pokemon like Gastrodon loves to play around in that Trick Room.
Absolutely. I think Tyranitar is an interesting decision here. You actually could justify bringing it despite so many major threats like Conkeldurr and Dracovish, mainly because, you know, it's immune to that fake tiers, but I think Eduardo might prioritize that a little bit less. But at the end of the day, you know, these players have shown that they really have so much knowledge and they're so flexible with their team. So I'm so excited to see how this first game goes.
Here we go. Game 1 of the Masters Finals. Gastrodon and Arcanine leading for Eduardo, while Marco has opted to go with the Duraludon and the Whimsicott lead. Very common leads that we've seen in the past. Use that fake tiers to give huge boosts to Duraludon in the Dynamax.
Yeah, so Arcanines typically will outspeed Duraludon, so Arcanine in this position I think is often going to want to maybe click something like Snarl just to decrease that special attack. And Gastrodon here could actually consider Dynamax. If you Dynamax the Gastrodon, you can immediately get some special defense boosts. Here we go. It's going to be a Dynamax to kick off this battle.
Yeah, nothing like a turn 1 Dynamax to kick off the Masters Finals. And it's the Slug. It's Gastrodon Dynamaxing, so Marco not opting to Dynamax the Duraludon this time around. Keeping that Dynamax option, gonna have to try and stall out the big Slug here. Whimsicott goes for the fake tiers, going to be able to deal a lot of damage on one of these Pokemon. Targets the Arcanine, actually, recognizing that you want to get that Snarl off the field as soon as possible. The special attack drop on Duraludon going to make sure that it is much less effective than it would have been before, but if it still targets down that Arcanine, still counts as having a few boosts here, as the Draco Meteor will connect.
Draco Meteor will connect, and let's see if it's enough to pick up the knockout. It hangs on! Clutch survival there.
10 hit points.
Oh my goodness, and Gastrodon presumably will go for something like a Max Quake. Goes in at Duraludon, you get a special defense boost as well from that. And there's the Max Quake coming out.
Max Quake from Gastrodon. connecting with Duraludon, hitting it on its weaker defense there, the special defense, and picks up the KO. Duraludon not Dynamaxing, so much squishier on that specially defensive side without the Dynamax.
Yeah, this is an Assault Vest Duraludon too, but you can see the weakness of Duraludon even with the Assault Vest, not able to survive there. Excellent Snarl by Eduardo turn 1, and I think that play covered all of his options there. So Kelder is going to switch in. You know, that's why I was saying I think Gastrodon's a really great Pokemon in this matchup beforehand. What do you really have to deal with it in terms of damage, especially a Dynamax Gastrodon? Maybe, you know, some fighting type attacks from Kelder or Sylveon Hyper Voices, but after you get a couple special defense boosts, it's pretty much down to the physical type attack boost. So I think Eduardo's goal right now is to prioritize knocking out this Kelder. Gastrodon won't be able to, you know, get a one-hit KO on either of these two Pokemon, but I think really content to just click something like a Max Geyser or Max Quake. Arcanine here can even stay in, go for example, a fire type attack into that Whimsicott. So
get the Tailwind pressure off the field.
Exactly, yeah, and like for Marco, maybe you're content trading Tailwind for a lot of damage here, and I think Tailwind is probably a necessity for the late game here because Eduardo just has so much strong Pokemon right now.
Okay, well Arcanine switching out to protect itself for Togekiss, going to preserve the fire type attacks so that, and the Snarls and the Intimidate if it is that Dracovish in the back may need it if Marco is able to punch through the Gastrodon by using this Dynamax Conkeldurr. Will be able to use its Max Knuckle to give itself some boosts in addition to a Guts boost once its Flame Orb activates. Whimsicott will be able to set up the Tailwind here, so giving a speed boost to the entire team, and actually just going for the Max Hailstorm, catches Togekiss on the switch. Big damage, not quite enough to pick up the KO, but that's a lot of damage.
That's a really, really good prediction there. Realizes that Eduardo's going to probably want to Psycho in that Intimidate. Max Quake will come out, but it's not really going to do very much damage, especially against the Dynamax Conkeldurr.
Yeah, Conkeldurr takes actually a pretty good amount of damage there from the Max Quake. Like you mentioned, though, the Gastrodon going to continue just boost the special defense. So if the Sylveon's in the back, Marco's not going to be able to deal too much damage to that Gastrodon.
Huge prediction there, though. I mean, Arcanine was already pretty low. I'm not sure a Max Hailstorm would have knocked out Arcanine in the range it was in. So once again, that's a really great read because if Marco just goes for the Max Knuckle, which you might be tempted to go for, then Togekiss survives that pretty easily. You can go for, you know, follow me this next turn. However, Togekiss does survive. The main thing is that a Whimsicott attack such as a Moonblast will be able to probably pick up the knockout. So right now you could safely go for something like Moonblast into Togekiss and then just go for Max Knuckle into the Gastrodon. And even getting a single attack boost on Dynamax Conkeldurr is a big deal.
Yeah, and crucially the Flame Orb activated at the end of that turn as well. So Conkeldurr getting the Guts boost will help it negate this Intimidate coming out from Arcanine on the switch-in. So Eduardo trying to fight back and reduce some of the damage coming out from Marco's side. Arcanine able to tank that Moonblast because it is a resisted hit. Just a little bit of damage while Conkeldurr is opting to go for Max Knuckles, actually double targeting the Togekiss slot. So we'll pick up the KO onto Arcanine. No more Intimidate pressure coming out, and an attack boost to negate that Intimidate entirely.
Yeah, so doubling up onto the Togekiss there, basically covering for any switch-ins. Basically, with that play, if Togekiss switches in or stays in, you get the knockout, and your Max Knuckles getting redirected towards Conkeldurr. Actually, after the two Max Quakes and Burn and Hail damage is
good damage.
It is really good damage, and of course, it's not that Assault Vest Conkeldurr that we often see because the Assault Vest is on the Duraludon on this team. So, yeah, Gastrodon so far really hasn't taken any damage, and like you said, that Intimidate will basically mitigate the attack boost that came from that Max Knuckle.
And Tailwind's still up, so Conkeldurr is going before the Gastrodon, has another opportunity to pick up a KO on these Pokemon before the Tailwind ends.
Is going to be Tyranitar as that fourth option, though. So Conkeldurr has a pretty optimal matchup against Gastrodon and Tyranitar, especially because Gastrodon no longer is Dynamaxed. And Whimsicott can still go for some solid damage with something like a Moonblast. Might want to consider switching out as well. One thing I have to wonder is the last Pokemon on Marco's end that Dracovish? Because if it is, as soon as you knock out Gastrodon, Dracovish theoretically should win.
Even if you're able to get Gastrodon low, we've seen that Dracovish is no slouch even when just using something like a Crunch to deal some damage. But Sylveon's actually the final Pokemon, so all of those Max Quake boosts are going to make it much more difficult for Marco to break through Gastrodon. Tyranitar just trying to protect itself for this final turn of Dynamax from the Conkeldurr.
Was it targeting? Oh, goes into Tyranitar!
Into the Protect. Tyranitar still 4 times weak, but because of the Protect, not going to take the maximum amount of damage. Conkeldurr gets off the attack there. Another attack boost activates the weakness policy from Tyranitar. Now Gastrodon's going to be able to get off an attack, and soon this Tailwind is going to expire as well as the Conkeldurr's Dynamax, which is actually really good for Marco.
Yeah, and I think Sylveon, an excellent fourth Pokemon to have out here, especially with Spread Hyper Voice. He's able to chip away enough at the Gastrodon at this point, and that's does so much damage to Tyranitar even through the Protect. So Sylveon exerting an immense amount of pressure right now with Hyper Voice. Like Togekiss in the back won't be able to do that much damage, especially without the ability to Dynamax. And Marco actually conserved his Whimsicott, so he could still set up a Tailwind later on once Conkeldurr faints here. So I think Marco is actually in a tremendous position, and this is one of the reasons why Conkeldurr has been such a high priority pick throughout the course of this metagame, specifically for its ability to deal with Tyranitar, because you pressure with Mach Punch even after Tailwind, for example, expires. So right now I think Marco can definitely click the Hyper Voice button with Sylveon. He has a bunch of decisions to go with Conkeldurr. Can maybe swap out back into the Whimsicott, or maybe you just sacrifice it here so you get a free switch and back into the Whimsicott and get another Tailwind off and close the game off with Whimsicott and Sylveon.
All right, Marco having to decide an in-game here. Eduardo just going to protect Gastrodon from any damage coming out from Marco's side, like that Hyper Voice from Sylveon. So the Hyper Voice connects on to the Tyranitar, which took all the damage from Max Knuckle earlier, easily able to pick up that KO. So Conkeldurr sticking around this turn. The Protect prevent... Oh! The side Drain Punch to survive the sand and burn damage here. So Conkeldurr gets to survive for a few more turns. Yo, that was good.
Yeah, but that's so much damage on the Sylveon now, and Eduardo does have the Togekiss, and we know it's the Scope Lens Super Lux set as well, so we'll have to see how fast the Sylveon is relative to this Togekiss. I mean, it is super low, so if you have the priority, like a Quick Attack, for example, maybe a Quick Attack and a Mach Punch will be able to get the knockout. I don't think a Mach Punch from Conkeldurr is knocking out Togekiss. Not even sure a Quick Attack from Sylveon is able to pick up that knockout.
It's gotten a lot of Max Knuckle boosts.
That's true, yeah.
And its guts. You saw how much damage it did to Sylveon.
It did a lot of damage to Sylveon, that is correct. So we'll have to see. I mean, that is a clever way, and self-targeting obviously is not a very, very common attack. Togekiss is obviously heavily damaged, so it is pretty close to getting knocked out. Oh, it's going to be a close finish, but I think Marco still has the advantage right now. And we know that the Togekiss here doesn't have Protect, so you can freely target that slot. I think Gastrodon's obviously going to be attacking, even though it didn't Protect. And Conkeldurr going for a Protect here.
Okay, Conkeldurr did all of that work to heal back up.
Sylveon's faster.
Sylveon's faster than the Togekiss, though, so Hyper Voice picks up the KO, and that's a lot of damage with a critical hit onto Gastrodon through all of those Max Quake boosts. Eduardo goes for the Scald, connects with the Sylveon, so able to pick up the KO there after Sand here.
It's a big deal that the Sylveon there is faster than the Togekiss, though, naturally. And maybe that was information that the players already knew going into this. So, yeah, hey, Self-Drain Punch there, definitely a cool play. I think it actually makes a lot of sense in so many different ways, too, because, like, you can eventually, if one thing gets knocked out, you can get the switch into Whimsicott and just set up a Tailwind there. But yeah, the fact that the Sylveon there is able to just outspeed Togekiss, get that Hyper Voice off, now you can very safely click Tailwind, Whimsicott, Drain Punch into Gastrodon, the game is just over. So really, really interesting and cool plays from both ends, I think, in this game. And Marco made some phenomenal predictions, especially the Max Hailstorm into the Togekiss, and you see the power of Conkeldurr. That's one of the reasons why earlier I was saying maybe Tyranitar is a little weak in this matchup, but let's see if Gastrodon can maybe stall out the, the Conkeldurr right now.
Actually didn't go for the Tailwind here, just the Fake Tears and Drain Punch. Both of those into Gastrodon's Protect here. So should Eduardo go for the double Protect here, would be able to pick up the KO on Conkeldurr, unless it goes for another side Drain Punch, which might buy a little bit more time.
Yeah,
tough call here. This is actually a weird position to be in.
Yeah, it's like definitely a potential play to make, but like if you side Drain Punch yourself, you like crit the Whimsicott and you knock yourself out, that would be a disaster. But Gastrodon goes for the double. Do we see another side? Let's see. It's going to be Fake Tears to kick things off.
Yeah, Whimsicott gets the Fake Tears off onto the Gastrodon. Does not get the double Protect, so Drain Punch connecting to Gastrodon will pick up that KO. Marco is going to get a Game 1 victory here using the big brain plays to keep that Conkeldurr alive and firing off against that Gastrodon.
That was so cool. And You know, when he first went for that play, I was like a little bit nervous because I was like, there is an offensive Togekiss in the back. If that is faster, I mean, maybe it can just start doing some damage. But key thing here is in the end, Sylveon was able to outspeed that Togekiss, able to get that Hyper Voice off. So really cool play there from Marco. I think I like the approach Eduardo went in this game with as well. But you see where Gastron kind of falls off a little bit. I think Conkeldurr has proven its damage output against Eduardo's entire team. And that's kind of why before we started this match, I was thinking Durant could be a really interesting pick because if you Dynamax it, even if you're not getting KOs, you can get some max Steel Spike boosts, get those defense boosts, which helps out immensely against Conkeldurr. So I think for Eduardo's end, you might want to consider bringing in that Durant and Dynamaxing it in the second matchup. I also think Tyranitar really didn't provide that much value in that last game, and the main reason is because Conkeldurr just pressures it so much the entire time. So
especially Dynamax.
Exactly. So Eduardo needs to go back to the drawing board, consider how do I beat a Dynamax Conkeldurr, because that's a Pokemon that, you know, I think on these team compositions like Duraludon's off the Dynamax, you saw Marco made a really smart play on that first turn, choosing not to Dynamax that Duraludon. You can see like he clearly had a kind of a long-term game plan in the set.
All right, well, Eduardo is the defending international champion, so if he knows how to come back, if anyone knows how to come back from a deficit, it's him. He's going to have his work cut out for him. Falling in game one, going to need to make some big plays here to advance to a game 3 and keep the tournament hopes alive. Otherwise, Marco will be taking home the championship title here. And really importantly, that last game, the Dracovish did not come out.
Yeah.
Of course, seeing that Gastrodon on Eduardo's side makes it very difficult to bring that Pokemon. So Marco deciding, I'm not even going to worry about trying to play around the Gastrodon with my Dracovish. I have other win conditions. I'm not going to worry about it.
And I think Sylveon was an immensely clutch pick there in the end, able to get spread Hyper Voices off against all these things that really don't resist it. So it also speaks to why I would like to see Durant in this matchup, given Marco's heavy prioritization towards Whimsicott, Duraludon, Conkeldurr, and Sylveon. If you look at it, I mean, Durant has a really good matchup against all of that, actually. So we'll see if Marco makes the prediction, expects Edu to maybe bring the Durant and switches things up by perhaps bringing in the Rotom Heat. Oh my goodness, though. Those were some really cool plays, I think, from both ends. I mean, we have to point out Marco going for the Max Hailstorm prediction on the Togekiss switch in, and of course the self-drain punch, but I think Eduardo going for some really safe and consistent plays earlier on, but in the end, it felt like Marco had the edge because his Pokemon were just a little bit stronger, and he made some really nice predictions to propel him to the top of that first game.
Yeah, got some good calls on the switches. Got some good damage spread out, even though Gastrodon was boosting itself up in the Dynamax. You know, was able to take out the Duraludon, but other than that, Dynamax Gastrodon, not a huge offensive threat, mostly just to get those boosts here. So it looks like Edu is very happy to lead with the exact same, with the Arcanine and Gastrodon, this time catching the Sylveon and Rotom Heat from Marco.
Yeah, so Rotom Heat, maybe the mix-up here predicting a potential Durant somewhere in the back, but I think here, you now have the ability on Eduardo's end to just click Snarl, which is really great against both of these special type attackers. They really won't be doing very much damage. Gastron
no fake
can choose
support.
Exactly. Gastron can Dynamax, go for Max Quake, and get continuous special defense boost. So, I mean, the main question, once again, is like Gastron is a pretty good Pokemon to Dynamax in this matchup. You just have to deal with the Conkeldurr a little bit better. And maybe Eduardo is saying, okay, I still have the tools to deal with that. I just need to make sure that my Togekiss hangs on for a little bit longer this time around.
Okay, well, there's Conkeldurr switching in favor of the Rotom Heat, as Eduardo switches out Gastrodon for Togekiss. A good Pokemon to have out against this Conkeldurr. Arcanine just goes for a safeguard, so trying to avoid any potential status effects from Marco's side, but it's not going to be status, it's just going to be damage. Hyper Voice connecting with both the Togekiss and the Arcanine.
That's a lot of damage with Hyper Voice there, too, especially because of the lack of a Snarl. One thing that I wanted to talk about before this game started was I thought Togekiss is also a pretty good candidate to Dynamax, especially because of its matchup specifically against Conkeldurr. But getting all that damage off before a potential Dynamax, I think is a really big deal. Especially
basically double value.
Exactly. And I mean, if Conkeldurr chooses to Dynamax here, perhaps a Max Hailstorm will be able to just knock out the Togekiss here. So I think that makes the option of Dynamaxing Togekiss a little bit more difficult, and the safeguard really not doing very much on that first turn, but Conkeldurr actually opting for the switch out here.
Another switch out, so Conkeldurr switches in favor of Rotom on Marco's side. Here comes the Snarl finally on Sylveon and Rotom. High value Snarl, dropping the special attack of both Pokemon on Marco's side. So those Hyper Voices aren't going to be dealing as much damage as they did before. You can see the effect of the Snarl immediately on both those Pokemon. Togekiss just going to be able to fire back with a Dazzling Gleam of its own. Not quite a Hyper Voice, but does get the critical hit on Sylveon.
Yeah, and Togekiss has taken so much damage at this point where you're thinking, I mean, I don't think it's going to Dynamax. And I think Marco making a proactive play, realizing, okay, Conkeldur's the only way I can really beat that Gastron, so I just don't want to risk getting KO'd by anything. Might as well switch in Rotom. Rotom actually, I think, one of the best Pokemon in this format, really, to have out against both the Togekiss and Arcanine. So I think that's a great switch. And once again, Sylveon being faster than Togekiss is just such a big deal here.
Yeah, showing that Sylveon's faster than Togekiss means that there's only so much that Eduardo can get off before taking that big damage from Hyper Voice. May just be able to get more Snarls, as Marco is just going to retweet the Rotom Heat again. Brings out the Conkeldurr, so Marco doing a lot of switching of partner Pokemon next to Sylveon. Eduardo doing the same for the partner to Arcanine. It looks like Marco got the matchup that he wanted. Conkeldurr back out again against the Gastrodon. But this time, Arcanine just goes for offense, picks up some damage on the Conkeldurr with that Flamethrower. Actually pretty decent damage, which will start adding up thanks to the burn as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage, like you mentioned, and that is one of the approaches to knocking out the Conkeldurr. If you're able to do all this damage before it Dynamaxes, like you were just saying, that makes it just so much less effective. But this is a really interesting game. I mean, we are a few turns in, and neither trainer has opted to Dynamax yet, and once again, I feel like Gastron is still a really good candidate for Eduardo to Dynamax, but he is slowly taking a lot of damage on all of these Pokemon, so he's going to want to make sure to conserve it, and Togekiss is also getting chipped away, so won't get that much more utility other than maybe a potential Follow Me later on. Still have to wonder what the last Pokemon on Eduardo's end is as well. If it is something like that Tyranitar, then your goal is to definitely just knock out Conkeldurr as quickly as possible. And I think in each turn there's been the potential to Dynamax, but both players are kind of playing the waiting game to see if their opponent Dynamaxes first.
Yeah, who's going to blink?
Yeah, let's see. No Dynamax once again.
Actually, a Protect coming out from Eduardo's Arcanine, so no Flamethrower, no Snarls, no switches. Hyper Voice from Sylveon connects with Gastrodon, so going to deal a little bit more damage right back.
Drain Punch. Who's it going to? Goes into
connects with the
Arcanine.
Protect. So good call there from Eduardo, protecting the Gastrodon, and Gastrodon now able to get off a recover, healing back all of the damage that Sylveon has been able to do with those Hyper Voices, while Conkeldurr starts continuing to whittle away at its health pool with that burn.
Oh, that was a huge play for Eduardo. I mean, if the Drain Punch goes into that Gastrodon, probably just gets the knockout there.
Yeah.
So, wow, Gastrodon being able to heal all the way back to full. And that's one of the ways you can get around taking some chip damage before you Dynamax. Just heal it, and now you can click the Dynamax button. So
what chip damage?
I think like both players have been smart about not Dynamaxing either. Just waiting to see. And if there's any time, I think Gastron could Dynamax now. So let's see if it is finally time for a Dynamax.
Okay, well, Sylveon switches out for Rotom Heat as well as Togekiss coming in for Eduardo. Gastron actually just going for the Protect here, trying not to take any damage from Marco's Pokemon. But Conkeldurr actually just going for the Drain Punch on Togekiss. Doesn't deal a lot of damage because of the resistances. Heals up a little bit, probably just about enough to ignore the burn damage for one turn.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe you could go for the Dynamax onto Rotom and target the Conkeldurr, but I think one play that Eduardo has to be scared of is, of course, Conkeldurr just hard switching out into Rotom. One way you could get around that is actually, I guess, clicking Max Geyser instead. But Togekiss is now out, has redirection support, so you can go for something like a Follow Me, but I think Rotom can very easily click Thunderbolt into that slot without much problem. And Conkeldurr, now being able to move before the Gastrodon, can get a really, really big Drain Punch offs there. So I think that last turn was maybe an opportunity for Eduardo to get some more damage onto the Conkeldurr, but wanted to get a free switch in, I think, but Marco keeping up the momentum. Nice decision to switch onto the Rotom, and finally we're going to see a Dynamax.
Yeah, the first Dynamax of this second game, coming out actually much deeper into the match than before. It's going to be the Rotom Heat on Marco's side. So the big toaster oven out here has a pretty poor matchup against the Gastrodon, but able to deal a good amount of damage to the Togekiss with this Max Lightning. Easily able to pick up the KO on Togekiss with only the 40 hit points. No Follow Me's though, so that was an accurately targeted attack. Conkeldurr able to get off an attack on this Gastrodon now.
I have to wonder if Duran's Eduardo's last Pokemon. He's been playing it kind of like it is, honestly.
Yeah.
We'll see Drain Punch do a lot of damage in the Gastron, but
Whoa.
big chunk there.
Yeah, that's a huge chunk of damage onto Gastrodon, and even worse, that's going to heal Conkeldurr all the way up to almost full. The Rotom taking just a little bit of damage, enough to activate the berry here, heal up. So yeah, you're exactly right. Eduardo seems to be playing as if he has Durant in the back as the final sweeper. But that Rotom Heat's going to need to go down before it can come out.
Yeah, exactly. That actually might be the reason why Marco actually decided to conserve that Rotom Heat, realizing, okay, Eduardo might have Durant in the back, and if he does, I lose my Rotom Heat. How am I beating Durant? And there's really no way, even if I Dynamax Conkeldurr or Sylveon. So this has really been a fun set, I think, of both players making some really impressive plays, and once again showing the flexibility of Dynamax and choosing not to just aggressively Dynamax. And there is the Durant.
Whoa. Okay, well, Durant switching in against the Dynamaxed Rotom Heat and Conkeldurr alongside Gastrodon. We saw that Eduardo sometimes uses the Durant as a follow-me Pokemon, but I think he might need to get a little bit more out of it this time if he wants to force a Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the Max Rockfall on the Durant, I think it's a pretty easy decision to go for the Dynamax and Max Rockfall. Otherwise, I think you might want to consider Dynamaxing and maybe protecting. I don't know, it's just weird because you know that the Conkeldurr is faster than the Gastrodon. So here, Marco is a really safe play where you just go for Max Flare into Durant and Dream Punch, and I think really, like, there's not much way around that. So let's see if Durant does have that Max Rockfall.
All right, Durant has Dynamax. It's just Steel Spike. That's going to connect with the Conkeldurr, pick up the KO there. So keeping the Gastrodon alive and healthy. Might be using a Dynamax Follow Me here to help that Gastrodon get a little bit more protected from whatever Pokemon Marco has in the back.
And it's
that's the Max Flare that's easily going to pick up the KO onto Durant. So Gastrodons and this Arcanine going to have to do a lot. We still don't know what the fourth Pokemon is that Marco has brought.
Marco's decision to Dynamax his Rotom was so smart because that also sets up the Sun now, so that Scald from Gastrodon does less damage. I think it's one of the reasons why, and Gastrodon goes for Recover, so I mean, you have knocked out the physical attacker, which is the Conkeldurr, so I mean, Gastrodon could maybe stall this out, but Eduardo just doesn't have very much damage at this point. He's down to Arcanine and Gastrodon. We know these are pretty bulky Pokemon as well. And I just think it's so smart on Marco to Dynamax this Rotom, especially keeping that in mind that Durant was probably in the back. And the lack of a Max Rockfall means that it's a lot tougher to knock out this Rotom Heat.
Okay, well, Arcanine is out. The Intimidate hits the Sylveon and the Rotom Heat. So if Marco did bring the Dracovish, not going to be intimidated by Arcanine a little bit later on. These are Eduardo's final two Pokemon. His last stand here in the Oceania International Championships, facing down the Rotom and the Sylveon.
I think here Arcanine's almost always clicking Snarl, which it is, and I think you probably go for like a Max Darkness Hyper Voice on Marco's end, as Gastrodon either just tries to chip away more with damage, maybe hold for a Skull Burn or Power Special Defense Drop. Could click Recover as well to deal with the Snarls that you know, or the damage that you know is coming out this turn.
Actually, Max Darkness targeting down the Arcanine. Marco trying to get that Snarl off the field as soon as possible. Gets those special defense drops as well, which are basically counteracting the Snarl that Arcanine just pulled off. Big Hyper Voice damage on both Pokemon, Arcanine and Gastrodon, and an Earth Power from the Gastrodon. Connects with Sylveon, not able to pick up the KO even close.
I think Max Darkness definitely the best move to go for there because, you can still switch out right now on Marco's end. So the goal is basically knock out the Arcanine, and then Gastrodon can't really effectively deal with all Pokemon. So I think, like you said, we haven't even seen Marco's last Pokemon, and once again, just such a clever decision to Dynamax the Rotom Heat in this matchup. And it was, kind of both players drawing it out, vying for the position that they wanted. In the end, Marco said, you know what, I think now is the position for Rotom Heat to kind of just sweep through everything. So for Eduardo's end, you could click Snarl once again, but if you click Snarl, Arcanine will just feint. So maybe you consider protecting the Arcanine here, getting a critical hit with Gastrodon. But the question is, can Gastrodon even hang on from a Hyper Voice? There is the Protect, though. All
right, Arcanine's Protect here to avoid getting knocked out by the Hyper Voice or this Thunderbolt from the Rotom. Sylveon does go for the Hyper Voice, going to be incredibly important if this Gastrodon can survive this damage. It deals a lot, does not get the survive. Sylveon picks up the KO. Marco in an absolutely commanding position to become your next Oceania International Champion.
Yeah, he's got to be able to taste it now. There's pretty much nothing Eduardo can do to beat the combination of Rotom and Sylveon, not to mention Marco still has another Pokemon in the back.
The Flamethrower into the Rotom Heat. Arcanine trying its very best, but it's not going to be enough. Rotom's Thunderbolt did so much damage this entire match, and that's going to be it. Marco Silva is your new Oceania International